Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Tuesday, July the 16th. This will be our chart lesson for today. Before I get started, there hadn't been a whole lot of entries today, but the ones we did have, I mean, it's been a really good day for movement, so we've actually been trending today for a change. Got a little iffy right in here, but you got to figure with that strong support. I mean, it really started out as a trading range. We fell out the top, we fell out the bottom. But when we couldn't get back to the other side and started making lower highs here, it was pretty obvious we were probably going to move on through. And then by the time you had these couple of swings, you should have had a trend line right here. And you just copy that trend line and you move it down. And, you know, I was thinking it was right in there, and it could be right in there. But looking at this, you know, just looking at the way I've got it, I believe that it's not really the line. The line is down here, and this is just a median line. And that brings me to a point I want to go over real quick before I talk about the trades. Somebody made a comment yesterday about a video. It was a video from back a month or so ago, but they basically were saying that, but the comment was just made in the last day or so, but they made a comment that, hey, you know, you're fudging a little bit because you didn't know this, and it was an uptrend, but we'll just use this line as an example because this is a really good example, so I thought I would show you this today. They said you wouldn't have had that line down, you wouldn't have known prices were going to bounce here, but that is incorrect. I show this all the time. I teach this all the time, how I do this, and once it was clear that prices were going through this line, you know, you try to find where the median is, and it's obvious. This, you can see it holding prices below here and then above, and you can see it was holding them below, and now we're back above, and it's kind of holding them above. So I'm pretty sure I got that right. And so what you do, of course, you wouldn't be able to get this part of it, but as soon as prices broke through right here and came back and turned down, then you got to figure out where they're going. So I measure the distance between these two up here, and I like to put this line on so I make sure my line is straight up and down so it's not crooked or something. And you just measure it, and then you copy this same line right here and drag it down, and you can see that's the same line, and you drag it down, and guess what? Prices come right to it and bounce off of it. You can't, I mean, and I had that line there after from about 10:30, and it bounced right off of it at 10:50. Is that right? 10, yeah, a little about 10, somewhere around 10:30, and it bounced off of it about 20 minutes later. But that's because prices moved down there pretty quickly, and that's how you do that. If we'd have went on through there, through this line, you do the same thing. You just measure it and drop it down and drop another one. The market moves and measured moves. So I had a good idea. That's where we would find support and prices would bounce. And, you know, there's no magic to it. We do this every day. We do it all the time. And we seem to be seeing this a lot where you have, you know, used to you would just get tight channels. And then you kind of got a channel here that's working down as well. But this is a minor channel inside the bigger one. So yeah, you can get those lines ahead of time, and that's exactly what I did on the uptrend. On that other chart, maybe it was a downtrend too, I can't remember, but I found it off the low side and drug it up, so when prices were headed back up, I knew where we were going. Yeah, it was a downtrend too, I think, and I found the line off the lows and drug it up. And I kind of did that here. I had this line right here and drug it up, and you know, I wasn't 100%. You don't know for sure till prices get there, but I had the line there well before prices get there, and then once you see prices bouncing off of it, you know for certain that you got it right then. So, but anyway, I wanted to show you that because I want people to know that, you know, you can find these lines in advance even with no price action. So don't think you can't, because you can. And if anybody tells you you can't, then they just don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand what we're doing, or they don't understand that you can actually do that, that there is a rhythm to the market, and that there's geometry to the market, and it moves in twos and it moves in measured moves. And, you know, if you study, you know, if you follow our stuff, we talk about it and show it all the time. And so anyway, but let's talk about the trades, and I'm going to wrap it up early today. We were obviously in this trading range earlier. We got a bounce right off of it. If you didn't use a stop here, you probably didn't get filled, didn't come back and get any limit orders. Quick, easy scalp, nothing more than it fails out the top. Chance to go short here on a second entry. Nice move down here, another quick move. So this one you did get some runners, but what I'd want to do is exit, or what I do is exit. As soon as we bounce off that line and start to overlap, you exit. Could it go lower? Yeah, but you know the odds are it's going to bounce there, and of course it does bounce. I didn't like a setup long here because look at all the overlap, and this is not a very good signal bar, and it didn't go very far. If you took that second entry long, it is kind of a breakout pullback long, and I probably should have circled that in green. It's a little more aggressive. I didn't like the trade, so I skipped it because I'm thinking, you know, we're probably going lower, but I'm going to go ahead and put that one in green just in case you saw it, because it is a little, you know, it's a little more aggressive. But it's pretty good, you know, it is a second entry long coming off the lows of what looks like a trading range day. And but then we find resistance here. And, you know, if you drew this line, I originally had it right there. And so then we find it started, and that may be right. Or actually, I think I originally had it right there off of those first couple of, and that's how you know, if you're drawing your trend line, you know, there may be a temporary trend line running right down on this little move here, but somebody sent me their thing and they were drawing a trend line like right here or something. And yeah, there's a trend line there, but that's not a very important one. That's not something you want to be trading off of. You know, you got to find the more important trend lines where you got room for the movement and so forth. And I told them that, you know, usually you find your swings off your trend line off the first two swings of the high or the first two swings of the low. And but really we were just in a trading range here until we really got this confirmed, and then that helped confirm this line, and by that time then you can find this line down here. And so anyway, there is a long there. It's a little more aggressive. I didn't like it. Especially after that bearish move down. We were really struggling to go higher, and we moved down real quickly. So you're thinking you may get a second leg like that at least. And so I thought we'd probably bounce here off of this, but it just kept going lower. And if you just stayed with it, you could have ridden it all the way to the other line. Nice, you know, you could have entered either one of these. Actually, I entered here, and then I added on right here. I got a little nervous on this one right here, but you got to expect that you're going to find support here, because look what's happened every time. And if you go back in here to yesterday, we were finding all that support across there at that same area. So but the reason I like this entry is a failed second entry long. It's off the trend line again, suspected trend line. Notice this first entry, pull back, second entry, and you may not can see that second entry in there. Let me move this over. You can see we went higher here, went lower, then went higher. And that's a really bearish bar. There was room to get out before you got down here, but we had to ride out a little pullback. So you keep your stop. This is your signal bar. So you keep your stop a tick or two above that, and as long as you did, you were safe. I got nervous right here, but I did that yesterday, and I let them shake me out of a trade earlier that would have been a winner. So I hung with this one today, and when it went lower there, I added on again. And it took it a minute even to get through there, but once it dropped down, it was off to the races. And you know, so with two sets of runners here, you know, that's a pretty good move, makes you a lot of money. And then notice this here. Notice this is a little bit higher high than this, so you can count this as a new high. So first entry long failure, pullback, second entry failure, plus a little breakout pullback. So that's a failed second entry long, breakout pullback short. And by that time, you know, you draw your line, you're thinking, hey, we got a long way to go. And it got choppy going down through here, but it went on down just like you'd expect. And then you had a breakout pullback short here. I don't really like that signal bar, but if you were paying attention to this, if you had this line here, you had to think we still got a long way to go. So I felt like that was worth adding on right there, and it was a good move. And where did we bounce? To the tick, exactly the measured move. And, you know, it doesn't get any better than that right there. And I'm wondering if we're going to get a trap here. Notice we got a failed entry, failed first entry, and now failed second entry short. it's a pull back to test this median line. So if we go higher from there, it might be a nice setup for a long there, headed back to this line here. So kind of watch that. If it's still setting up after the video, it's something I'm watching here. I'm pretty much done, but might go back in if we got a good setup. Wouldn't surprise me to get a trap here and see it go higher, but it also wouldn't surprise me to see it come on back down and retest this low, because we do have a little bit of a channel here, a little minor channel. But again, it just wouldn't surprise me to see us go up to here and then turn back down, because that's the main trend line. So, but that was pretty much it for today. You might have even thought about going long there, but everything's still below the EMA. It is a reversal, but it's only a first entry. The second entry didn't trigger till right there just a minute ago, and so it's just not, not a great setup. If you went long right there, it was a little aggressive trade, especially with that median line there, because there's a good chance you hit that and turn down, and I think it would have worked. Entry, I see 1, 2, 3. So far it's a 4-tick failure. So if you didn't enter that with a limit order, you're trapped on the wrong side right now. So that's why I don't like a trade like that. After you're coming off the low side, there's too much chance you're going back to the high side. And you definitely want a good setup here, and that's not a good setup. That's a doji, and then you got another bar, and it never broke lower. It didn't break lower till here, but by that time you got all that overlap. So okay, sorry, I had a little quick interruption there, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see us find support right here and get a trap and run back up to the other side of this thing. Notice that when we broke, this line really by now is down here, and notice once we broke through there, we never have come back and retested that. So we may even break this trend line and retest that right there. That's it's rare that you don't come back and retest something that, when you get support that strong, but once it broke through there, it hit the sell stops and it was off to the races. And so even though there weren't a lot of entries today, they were all fairly, this one was a little iffy, but you had to expect that with that support there. And but it's, you can't ignore those traps in that trend line right there. You just got to, you may have to ride it out, but you keep your stop where it's supposed to go, and you should be okay. If it goes higher than that, then you get stopped out, and you lose a few ticks. But a really good trading day. It got, it looked like it was going to be another choppy trading range, but we've continued to go lower. And another thing, you probably should have, that you could have looked for support down here was, you measure these, and let's just see that. I never did measure that one. But you see we did find some support in there, but it got on through there because it was going for this resistance area. It's a downtrend. So even though it looks like a trading range right here, you can see this trend line was coming into play, and so we got a downtrend right here. And but yeah, hopefully that made sense to you about how I find these lines. And if we got through this one, I'd do the same thing again. I'd take that arrow, I'd put it down here, and I'd draw my next line, and I'd drop that line at the end of that arrow, and I'd wait on it, expect that's where it's probably coming again. And if you've never seen that done, you may think it can't be done, but I can assure you it can be done, and we do it all the time. And there is a market, there is a rhyme and reason to the market. It's not as random as people think. It may be random in the short term in these little moves, but you can see this market had a purpose, and it had a direction, and it had a target, and it was right down here at this support area, and that's where it found support, and that's where it turned. And so don't let anybody fool you. The market is not as random as a lot of people want to say the market's random and you can't determine where it's going, but that's not correct. So you don't know when it's going to get there sometimes, or how quickly, or the route it's going to take to get there. But generally you can get a good idea where these targets are, and I show that every day in our videos, and it works. So but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.